lose my. Uh, okay,
All right,
guys
we're live.
and gals, we're live. SOS. I had to bust out. I still fit into it. My
Did you expect
size
not to?
medium. Yeah, like a month ago, I couldn't have fit into this, but I'm back. I'm back into this thanks to a stomach virus. Lost some weight. But I'm here. SOS. Brad's got
The
some shirts.
positives.
Brad, you want to
Yeah.
give them like some hints of what we can expect?
No, I'm not.
No
but
hints.
I'm
Okay.
gonna have a. Yeah, I got to try to top. Last year, and they were pretty
What was
popular.
last year's?
They
What
went
was the
quickly.
feedback? Like, which one? This is my favorite, but
I
like,
think
what?
that was sort of the consensus favorite. The others were sort of, they were fine, but I think that was the one. I had people like message me after and be like, "Hey, how can I get my hands on one of those shirts?" So
You can't
I know you can't. That's the fun of it, right? It's some
message
scarcity
Dan.
there.
I'll give you my old one. It's like a little stained, but it's still good. All right, cool. Well, Brad's not gonna give up any hints.
You gotta come to the Omni and
Love it.
get one for yourself.
And
Will
the
these be?
Omni.
So I have a question. Will these be free to attendees, or do they have to pay for them? Is this like a concert shirt?
Yeah, I don't know if we've decided exactly what we're gonna do yet. I'll definitely
Do
have
you know
some
how Brad rolls? He
in my
just
back
like
pocket for
he
sure.
gives
So
trash bags of this stuff. He just left it out on the table. It was a frenzy, like when
He's gonna
hyenas
be on the
find a dead
stage with one
animal.
of those guns that they have at the concert, like the venues, right? Shooting them out
like
into the
the
crowd.
potato gun with T-shirts in it.
that's a good idea. Yeah, we need one of those so I
Somebody
can
needs to watch him.
shoot
Last year, I
across.
was like, Brad, where's my Phil Jackson one, man? And he got me one, though. Thank you, Brad. That was nice.
I got you.
Full of good ideas over here.
Yeah, so we've got Angel Pettit, LinkedIn underneath from Clinically, and clinical research software that puts you in control, because that sounds like a good idea. And Angel, what was your feedback from last year's SOS, and then what do you hope to achieve this year?
Good question. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think the biggest takeaway that I think me and my team had is that we found that you found a different group of people, right? I think that you typically end up at a lot of these conferences and run into the same people over and over again. And from a business perspective, it's nice to kind of reconnect and like re-engage with people that you may have had previous conversations with, but after a while, right, you're like, wait, there's a whole subset of folks that I think we're not reaching, right? Affordability for sites specifically, I think, and just the promise of it being a site-run, show brought out folks. We have a new customer, right, that we met there that I had never seen at a conference in my life, and I'd been invited, right? And
So
then when
you're
I asked
saying,
them,
well,
yeah,
let's double click on this, because I think this is striking a chord. So there are like an archetype of a client or a site that you've never interacted with before that came last year to SOS. Like, why do you think that who is it, first of all? Like, who is it that you're not
I mean,
reaching?
I don't know that just in case they don't want to be shouted out publicly without me asking, I think, I can ping you about it later.
No, just the archetype, like,
The
like,
archetype.
Like small,
It's
medium.
yeah. So
large.
definitely a kind of like a smaller site, right? That perhaps doesn't have it in their budget, right, to drop, because I think sometimes people tend to, especially let's say even on the sponsor side, right, they tend to not realize that when you look at the cost, right, it's not just the ticket, right? The ticket is a small piece of the pie of what it takes to like attend this conference, right? You have to travel, you have to feed yourself, right? Unless you're going to eat, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for 4 days that you bought at Publix, right? Like this, sure, you could do that, but then you're having this like miserable experience, right? And so there's the inherent cost behind it gets to start to be prohibitive, right? Especially if you're an emerging site or you are really trying to find your way, you don't get to take the same benefits, right, that a more established site or somebody that's got a bigger cash flow kind of tap into can afford to go do that, right? Like I think even now, though, even more established sites, sometimes they have to make choices about, like me as a vendor, I tend to be at all the conferences because it's what we have to do, right? But oftentimes a site can't, right? Even established ones have to make choices like I'm going to go to this one for this specific reason, right? I'm going to go to that one for that specific reason, whether it be content related or there's a demographic of people that are there from the sponsor CRO side that I want to make connections with or see, right? And so those choices become limiting for them, right, in attendance, but then from a vendor perspective, right, it means that there's these groups of folks that we just don't get the chance to interact with in person. And you know, I think for those that know me and met me, like I'm a people person. I am much more effective when I talk to people in person, right? It's part of my personality. It's kind of the way that I operate. And you can email and call people till you're blue in the face, and it's not the same as having that 3 minutes for someone to like, oh, this person's not full of crap, right? Like this, he's a genuine human, right? That is interested in what I care about and what we struggle with, right? So I think that I found those connections to be really interesting. Again, the customer that we signed, it even was so I don't know, for those that were in attendance, right? We had our like needs and wants board, right? And people were sticking up their stickers. And she came over with my thing I had written and like wrote her phone number on it and said, like, I definitely want to keep talking to you about X, right? And like that was a unique, like, people centric like way to approach, connections and networking, right? And so I think, now I'm rambling, but effectively, right, there were lots of little components to this that were just different than many of the other typical shows that I attend. And I do all kinds, right?
So anything different that you're expecting, outcomes, conversations this year, like anything that you guys learned last year that you can channel into this year?
I mean, I think there was enough positive buzz that inevitably more people are going to come, right? I also think in the world of conferences, like me personally, as much as I'm sure it was nice and convenient, for those that live in Arizona, like when the conference moves to a new location, by proxy, you're going to get different people that are either closer to that particular geographic area or can get in and out of that city easier or not, right? Like there's components to it's kind of, not to shout out on the conference, something I feel like ACRP gets right, that they move right across the country into different places to give different potential and access. Because again, if you are within a 2-hour drive to OKC, maybe this makes it even more viable for you, right? To jump in a car and just drive over, right? Rather than have to think about flights and, maybe you have to fly earlier because of you're limited, right? There's just so many logistics to go into these.
No, you're absolutely right. The only reason I went to ACRP last year was because it was in Anaheim.
Right.
So I was like, I can't miss that one. I gotta go.
Yeah,
Right. It's easy, right? And so I think for the sites, again, right, it's the accessibility. So to me, I think again, like I'm going to see people. Like I feel like I can almost guarantee that I will see people at this conference that I've never seen before. And if nothing else, it's another diverse perspective that I've not had the opportunity to engage with and kind of take in to help inform the way I relate to and speak to other sites.
And there was a lot of sites at the conference last year. This year, we're going to have, I think, a lot more sponsors than we had last year. So I'm sure that's a target audience of yours as well. So that's beneficial too. You're going to get the different demographics in terms of location, as well as more sponsors, because I'm sure that's a target audience for you as well.
Yeah. So, I'll be honest with you, we still are mostly focused on sites. Like that has really been from day one when we launched our products. We still, the people that help inform the evolution of our platform, the people who give us suggestions, feedback, both good and bad, right? Because I love the good, but I need to know the bad. And I think that our focus primarily has still mostly been sites. Though having sponsors there, right, I think allows questions, right? I think that the fact that there will be more sponsors will give more people opportunities to ask the types of questions they might not have been able to get answers about otherwise, right? Depending on their roles, et cetera. So having some diversity to like the attendees is also helpful, right? Again, the sites that come and are going to be able to participate will be able to get some of those other perspectives that maybe they didn't get.
You muted yourself, I think, either, Angel.
Angel's on mute, but this live stream is sponsored by the Omni Hotel in Oklahoma City.
The computer muted me. It was like mad at me. It was like, don't talk bad about those people. Like I'm gonna mute you.
Commercial break. Dan found a commercial break.
You gotta get it in there.
I didn't know that there were sensors in this thing. All right, cool.
You've angered the wrong people, Angel. What? Well, I'm sure we'll get into clinically. I just wanted to see if Judy or Brad had any questions, or Chris.
No,
before
no,
we-
actually, I'm interested to learn more. I know that you were talking about the system specifically for sites, so maybe this is a good segue to tell us more about clinically.
Yeah. So clinically, so we, just for those that don't know us, right? Because I know there's people out there that do, but for those that don't, right? We launched our products in March of 2020. So I think from a technology perspective, I think we're still young, right? We are still pretty fairly new in the marketplace in comparison to some of our competitors. We launched our product as originally as an e-reg solution. Like that was our bread and butter. Our CEO kind of comes from the finance world where, right, I think technology talks to each other in the way that is required, right? Could you imagine, right? You comes from the world of finance and, your system doesn't talk to Bloomberg or something, right? Like it's not possible, right? And so we built this with the intention, right? Like we're going to build the best e-reg product we can so that the consumer, right, in this case, sites for us can make their choices, right? They love our e-reg, they love so-and-so's e-source, they love this, they love that, right? And we'd all talk to each other and then got the real hard, harsh slap in the face that that's not how research works. And, it is unfortunate that that is still the case, right? Here we are 5 years later. So it's caused us to expand from Clinically's e-reg. Like originally our product was just called e-reg binder. Like nice and simple, straight to the point. This is what we do, and this is what we do well. We've evolved to the Clinically Research Suite because for two reasons. One, again, there's still this barrier of competitors not wanting to integrate with each other, which cause undue stress on the sites that we all service, which I still don't understand and will never I will never subscribe to that you should not do this, right? Like no matter what anyone says. So we've evolved to the Clinically Research Suite, which now includes eSource, which now includes our own clinically like pay, so patient stipend portal. We have our own Part 11 compliant signature component that we've built into our modules that are also built in, right? I think some, very specific, like sign on the line technology. Well, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be, right? If you look at all the FDA guidance, that's exactly what it's supposed to look like. We have e-consent basically built into our platform. And so we've started to evolve our products, but really not because we said we want to build a bigger company. It was because our customers said, hey, we really like the way you did X. And now that you've done X, like, would you consider tackling Y? And we'll help you do it, right? And I think that is very much a core tenet of the way we operate our business, right? I think I'm not an engineer, right? I'm a sales guy. I'm an operations person. I don't know a code from a Java, from a H2, whoever, right? What I do know is that we are very intentional about solving the problems our customers bring rather than building stuff and going to our customers and being like, look at this cool shiny thing. And them all looking at us and saying, who cares? Right? Like that doesn't help me or solve what I'm trying to accomplish. Right. And so I think that our team is very intentional about, okay, like what's the next problem that we're trying to solve? Right. And what does that look like as input that we get from our customers?
So you guys really like transitioned from a point solution to, a more all-encompassing platform. I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, I think have you seen, is it getting any better in terms of like potential integrations, or do you really think there was no choice other than
In
to
some
go
places,
broader?
In some places and in some, I'm trying to think about how to say this diplomatically, but now that, seeing this audience, I probably don't need to. I think that, size matters, right? We're still newer and younger in the market. I think that over time, from a technology perspective, we have the capabilities to integrate with anybody, right? It's the way we've built our system. It is API driven. What's the joke that Henry says? Or he says like, basically we consume our own dog food, right? Like API calls are how our system operates to work on a day-to-day basis. So effectively, anything you can see in our system, you effectively could do through the API from any other system if you wanted to. The challenge there, though, is that not every site we work with has the capacity or the infrastructure to be able to use that effectively, right? But on the flip side, the hospitals we work with can. Some people ask me, when they've seen who our customers are, they're like, it's interesting that you have such a diverse customer type. right? We work with one of the largest cancer hospitals in the world. We also work with like a tiny little retina institute in Texas somewhere. And I said to say to people, I think the reason we were able to accomplish that is our system's incredibly flexible, right? So for those that have the infrastructure and the IT support and the, you know, the staffing to be able to like use our API, right? Like we have a hospital if you used our API that feeds information, that creates studies, that does all these things programmatically, right? Which would be the dream for everyone if they could, right? But on the flip side, some of our smaller sites, like the system comes with some sensible defaults that on day one you could turn it on and just start using it, right? And so I think that this is like a really long-winded way of saying that I think as we grow and there's more relationships between other vendors and us, right, that they'll start to approach us. I mean, we are in some conversations actually with some, kind of sponsor types looking to be able to pull data from us directly. That's great, right? That is the way it's supposed to be, and it should be made easy, but not everyone does. So
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, it seems really user friendly, and a lot of us are already a little familiar with what you do. But I think that's great that you have something that could work for a range of sites, because every site is different, as you mentioned, and you have to pick what's going to work best for your patients, your site, where you're located, right? Because every system is, in a sense, so different as well. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for creating something like that.
yeah, I also think there's this world where I think that when you look at technology from other industries or whatever, right? Technology is meant to enhance kind of the way you work, right? Like you buy a thing to help make your life easier. And I think that we oftentimes are running into systems or processes where we as vendors are asking sites to basically change the way they work to fit the system rather than the system being able to seamlessly integrate itself into someone's workflow, right? Like I'd argue, and again, people that know me have heard me say this 1,000 times. I'd argue that site's workflow is not broken, right? If it was broken, they'd be out of business. But what they're looking for from technology is to help enhance perhaps the way they operate or streamline the way they operate, right? Or standardize some of the components of what they've done. But we as vendors, and maybe there's components of our system that might do that as well, because we've had to do XYZ for regulatory reasons or whatever. But we oftentimes say, well, no, this is how our system works. So if you want to use it, you got to figure out how to do it this way, right? And that's not the way technology is meant to enhance industries across, like not just research, right? Like that's, if you think about any industry, that's not why you buy a thing, right? And so, and it still to this day frustrates me, right? That, if Brad wanted, or Dan, or any of you, right, wanted to buy the best, what you feel was the best version of each of these things, you wouldn't be able to do that without some left on your end to tie them together, right? Or trying to like bastardize some of your process to make all the things work, right? Or get so frustrated by what you're doing that you're like, all right, I'm done with this. Like, I'm okay to do separate things, right? Because I want the best and I'm done, right? But that ideally, I should be able to talk to those other guys and we should make it work, right?
Yeah, and that is, I mean, I think that is a problem. Like we're looking at different options right now for CTMS and some of all the things that those systems contain, and finding, right now, seemingly nobody really does it all perfectly in the way we'd like according to our workflow, but it does seem damn near impossible to get the integration that you would like to see at the site level. So going to end up just like all the people I criticize, having like 4-point solutions for my team to be like, oh, hey, go log into all these different things. So I think that's still, unfortunately, just a problem at the site level. I mean, I think it's still a problem at the sponsor level too, but it seems to hurt a little bit more at the site side.
Right. I mean, your infrastructure is different too, right? Like you don't have billions of dollars to make mistakes, right? That's the biggest, like I think that again, people understate, right? A sponsor or a CRO makes a mistake in the choice of technology, and it's like a rounding error, right? Site, like that could set you back significantly if you make the wrong choice, right? If you've invested the wrong amount of time or money or effort in doing a thing that ends up garnering you $0 in revenue, but you've outlaid X, dollars, like that's a problem, right? And that's the differences too, right? That so you find sites that then become a little bit more risk averse to implementing these things, right? Because of that, right? About the fear of like making the wrong choice.
So Clinically's offerings are eReg, eSource, and is there anything else that's offered by Clinically?
So we do offer like a patient stipend, like reloadable kind of card component. And then our e-consent is kind of built into the fact that we built our own Part 11 compliant like signature workflow. So there's a consent component to it as well to allow for kind of, so people could basically do e-consent without the fancy videos and the, overarching things, right? I think, we went to build these components and had a lot of customers come to us and say, we've demoed e-consent platforms and there's all this extra stuff that we don't need that sometimes isn't approved by the IRB, when really all we want to do is get these people to sign their consent forms electronically and be able to store them in the system safely and do it kind of in bulk. Like, can you do that? And we said, yes, we do that already with regular documents. The biggest difference is, basically granting access to a document for someone to review without having.
You're muted again, Angel.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something. Hold on 1 second. This is annoying me. So
Meanwhile, book your room at the Omni Hotel.
Second commercial break.
Rooms are going quickly.
Yes, they are. You
Get
have
it
till
now.
February 27th to get the
Well,
discount code. If not,
there
you're
you
going to pay more.
I just refreshed and saw 3 more rooms being booked. So hurry up,
Nice.
guys.
That's working. You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a slight echo. It was better with the headphones, but
Yeah, I'm gonna switch this mic just because I think my headset is revolting against me and is about to find its way to landfill as a punishment. So
there you go.
I'm gonna move on from that. So yeah, but that again, that's the e-consent component for us. Like you don't need to build a rocket ship to get from here to the kitchen if I could use a skateboard, right? And that's another one of our, right? Like it's simple. It can be simple. Not everything needs to be complicated. And I think that we try to find places to simplify some of that process as much as we can.
Yeah.
So in Brad's scenario, you had said that your products are fully integratable with other products. Is there a CTMS vendor that you could recommend to Brad that you can integrate with your system?
That's a good question. I'll be honest with you. So no, it's good. So I'm going to answer this a little bit differently because this kind of goes to a question I get a lot when people ask me, like, how are you better than so-and-so? And I always say to them, like, I don't know that I am. Right? Like, I don't work for them, first of all. And second of all, what I can say to anyone is the folks that chose to work with us have determined that we were the best fit for the way they run their business, right? And someone that works with one of my competitors has made that similar decision about something about their system that they like or that works for them, right? And so I don't get into the who's better. Like, I'd argue, find the CTMS that works best for your business, right? And then if you're working with me on eReg, like, put us in touch with each other to see, hey, we've got this mutual customer that wants to accomplish this thing. This is what our API looks like. And again, I've had, without name dropping, right? Like, significant hospitals who have looked at our API and been like, we choose you, right? They've looked at all our competitors and said, that is one of the most easy, like, we can know that we can accomplish what we want to accomplish using, and again, that's at a high level, right? They have the resources to do that. But it speaks to our ability and our capabilities with others, if allowed, right, to integrate systems, but people just have to be willing to do it, right? Like there's no Google in the clinical research technology space, right? Like true, like monolith that's dominating everybody, because it would have happened already, right? And so what you have, right, is these companies that think that they are cornering the market, but they're not, right? The total addressable market is huge, but there's still only the subset of people that use the various technologies. And so, it's almost a detriment, right? Making people choose substandard components, right? Just because they don't want to have to log into different things, right? It's just, so I'm going to jump off my soapbox now, and that's a me thing.
Well, I had a question about these systems because I feel like each vendor, maybe there's a handful of them that pretty much offer similar things. They differentiate either in price or in features, but every vendor has its own growth strategy, trajectory. And first of all, do we know how many sites are still not using any of these? Like, is it about half? I always think it's like somewhere around half of sites are not using any eSource,
Yeah.
eReg type of thing.
It's funny because I think that when you look at some surveys that people put out there, they ask the question about technology, but not specifically about the components, right? And if you ask a site, do you use technology for your research? Well, most of them do in some capacity.
Yeah, 100.
Right. And so you get, I recently had this argument with someone because I think that the questions aren't being asked properly. Like they need to be very specific, right?
It's a
About,
stupid question because
right.
language itself is a technology. Like you can use, and
Oh,
everyone
right.
uses a laptop or a desktop. Like that's technology.
But when you make the question too broad, it can be interpreted,
Yeah.
right? Like if you said there's some sites that consider the fact that they use Google Drive to like manage their ISF as an eReg, right? To them, that's my eReg. Like I don't care about the signatures, right? I do all that with ink anyway, but I have
Right.
an electronic filing system, right? And well, is that really eReg? Not really, maybe.
Mm.
To them it is, right? So who am I to say it's not, right? So I think that's the part that you see. Like now, if you ask me, what do I think? Yeah, probably half, right? I mean, again, if you said to me that some of these hospitals we started working with over the last couple of years didn't have eReg solutions, I'd be like, what? No way. Like they're hospitals. Of course they did, and they didn't, right? And you're like, what? Like from a person outside research, right? Like full disclosure out there in the audience, like I've never done research a day in my life, right? Now I trumpet this because I know I don't know what I don't know, right? And my customers are the ones that help me understand the industry. I've had the pleasure of getting to meet you all in multiple places. So, and you've done me the service of allowing me to ask questions, right? And allow me to keep learning. But I don't know. Like I don't know what a coordinator actually does. I've had customers be gracious to invite me to their sites and show me, why they have these giant binders and what these books look like. So I have a sense of the like why, but I just never understand. Like I can never truly understand that part of it. But
Yeah.
I'm always surprised when I reach out to someone and like, yeah, we still just figured we're doing it on paper. I'm like, well, how many studies do you do a year that you're doing on paper? 70. I'm like, what? Like I've seen what a site that does 10 studies looks like with their binders in a giant room. So if you're doing 70, like you've got to have a half a wing
Storage.
into these
In a
books.
warehouse.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things about eSource is archiving costs go down. But where I was headed with my question is,
Oh yes, please.
let's just say it's half of sites, right?
Mhm.
Because I've seen the surveys that say like 60%, but I think this is a selection bias. I think they're asking sites that are on LinkedIn to begin
Yeah.
with. Like,
Many sites are not answering the surveys.
correct. So let's say it's 50. Like, let's be generous. I think it's actually less, but let's say it's 50. So for you as clinically, I think maybe it's less, or all the vendors, maybe it's less about getting the sites to switch as getting the new ones on board, because I think sites won't switch until either the product they're currently using sucks, which does happen, or it just gets too expensive. And I think the market, the free market, puts competitive pressure on pricing. So
Yeah.
I mean, is that accurate, or is that
No, it's so I'd make it a point to try to not, like, I don't actively try to poach from my competitors, right? Because I'll be honest with you, kind of makes me a hypocrite when I just finished telling you, right? Like, I don't know if I'm better than them. Like, maybe you picked them because it works for you, right? However, do I have customers that came from competitors? Yes, because they've decided that they wanted to change. I think as a strategy, yes, like I think it is easier. I might be personal, and okay, this is a two-step process. One, I think it's easier to onboard a site coming from paper to the digital format because they don't know anything else other than maybe some free stuff they were offered that was very limited in what they could customize or do, right? So now they've got this more robust option that lets them conform, right? Like, if you kept in your paper binder a red folder for your AEs, like so that you knew that this was the important one, well, guess what? Clinically, you can make a folder red, right? You can make it feel like it was your paper version, like this is our red one and whatever, right? And, that process just lends itself easier to onboarding and implementation. I think that the issue with the switch is not everyone makes it easy for you to get your data out from point A to move to point B. And that part, right, is something that like I would love to see the industry change, right? Like, again, maybe we're terrible business people, but our customers, there's a button. You want to download the entire ISF and all its content. You can hit this button. We email you a link. It's yours. Like, I don't own it. You do, right? It belongs to you. And for me to make a conscious effort to make it hard for you to get your stuff out just so that you can't leave is ridiculous, right? And so I think that makes it hard for the switch part, right? And also just, again, when you've spent so much time getting systems to work the way that they're working for you, like the tipping point of like, okay, now I'm done with this can potentially come, right? And so the ones that I have come to me have come to me, right? They've met me at one of these conferences or somewhere else and held on to my card because I'm, full of it and a people person. And then are like, hey, can you show me that thing you talked about that you guys do? Because I'd like to see it again, right? And then all of a sudden, customers, right? So that's kind of my way of saying, right? I would say yes. It's not worth it to try to like go to all the people that exist. You can do it if it's working for them. So the core of our acquisition comes from new, but there's people that just want to switch because it's time for them, right? They want something different.
And I wanted to add for the new people, because I'm a site owner, right? And I implemented our system years ago. It's a lot of work to put any system into place. So you do have, and that's the thing. And I think that's why a lot of people are still on paper, because it's a process. Somebody has to use it. A lot of people have to use it. You have to get trained. And at my site, I like to know what systems we're going to bring on and how these work. So I want to learn how to use it. And then from there, teach other staff, because we're all going to use it. I don't like to just get something and throw it on someone and here you figure it out. Let's see how this is going to work. But it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I think that's probably why. And then the switching part, I'm kind of at that point where you mentioned where I've considered switching, but it's a lot of work. So
I'll also say, like, I think there, and again, this isn't unique to my competitors. I'm talking about technology and research that I've seen in general when I again hear from customers frustrations, right? Where there's a lot of tech vendors out there that they charge for support or they charge for training, and I'm like, what? Why? Like, I mean, to me, it's in our best interest for our customers to understand how to use our system as well as possible. Because the more intricately they understand and can get value right out of what we can provide, the more likely that they are going to be happy. But if they've got to pay me because they've used up their like customer support time, their 10 hours for the month, now they got to pay me because there's something that doesn't quite work for them in the system. Like, to me, that's absurd, right? And so, but you find that this is standard in a lot of different verticals within research where if you buy the thing, but like you have limited amount of time to train or limited amount, and we train monitors for people. Like I'm saying to them, like, we're the experts in the system, not you, right? And so if your monitor is going to break your chops about when really all they need to do is know how to open a folder and like look at some stuff, but they want to waste time asking for access and want to get training so I can build a sponsor for whatever, right? We just tell them, come to us, because honestly, like, we tell that to our customers. They tell the monitors, yeah, our vendor will do training for you, like free of charge. Like, you just need to contact them. 8 out of 10 times, they never contact us because they don't actually want the training. They just want to break chops, right? Or bill for it. And it doesn't happen, right? And so, and we've got all kinds of guidance documents because it's not much they need to know how to do to monitor, an ISF, right? Or, Source might be a little bit more intricate and might need a little bit more, but for like E-reg, like what are they? It's not much different, right? Looking on it on the computer than going to a book, right? So what's the actual trading needed? So
I mean, it's an underrated point. Like, you really, as a vendor, want the people using your product to be as trained as they possibly can be to be using it as well as they can. I mean, I can attest. I mean, we've used systems that are probably great, but we didn't get good enough training to utilize it properly. And so now my perception of that product is it sucks. And it probably doesn't. It's probably perfectly fine, but we didn't get good training on how to use it in the first place. And now, you sort of sour on it and you're ready to move on to something else, or, feel like it doesn't meet your needs because you're going to lose customers just because you didn't do a good enough job of, ensuring the users were trained, whether that's because you're nickel and diming them or just not giving them the, the time they need. So I think, again, that's kind of undervalued point that I'm seeing more and more as we use more tech solutions.
yeah, I mean, I've made it a point, like my customer success team, like I've made it a point as an edict from me, right? They are to offer every single one of our customers check-ins at whatever frequency that they would like, and within reason. And I think when you offer that to someone, you realize that people are generally reasonable, right? Like they're not going to ask to meet every day because they don't have time to meet every day either. But if you give them the opportunity to say, you know what, during this onboarding process, I really would love an every like 2-week check-in until we feel comfortable that we're at the right spot, right? And then after that, we can move to monthly, and after that, maybe bi-monthly, But we let our customers dictate the frequency. But my point was make yourselves available, right? Because ultimately, like the lifeblood of what we do as a business are our customers. And so from that also, though, comes some of the enhancements that live in our system, right, are because of the frequent check-ins we have, right, to understand like, hey, this isn't quite working for me. Oh, well, why? Because we didn't do X. Like I'll give a quick example. Like one of the things in our system, like you can email documents into our system. When we first built that feature, right, the system turns the email into a PDF. It downloads all the documents into the folder because every folder has got its own email address. Like it's great. But we had it, again, we're not in research. And it took like some feedback like this for someone to make us realize like, well, if I move those documents elsewhere and I come back and look at that email, it almost seems like that email only had 3 documents attached to it, not 10. And it's, again, oversight. We don't know. And it doesn't take, and some of the, like, how long has this been a problem? Well, we just realized it recently, but it takes, sometimes they don't want to complain. I'm like, complain, because that's an easy fix. We fix it, and now the system tracks it no matter where it goes, right? But it's little pieces like that come from these like check-ins and these conversations that we have that we try to do fairly regularly.
Well, anything else from Brad, Chris, Judy, Angel? I mean, I can keep going on, but
I think I need to call an official commercial break, Dan.
oh, you want me to do the commercial? Listen, people, we need you to stay at the Omni Hotel, right? So reach out to our website, and if you have issues, reach out to one of us. We can walk you through how to book your room, because you want to be there. You don't want to be in a foreign city, don't know where the hell you're going, right? You want to be in the same place where everything's at, and that's the Omni Hotel.
Yeah, you want to be able to stumble right up to your room after you have drinks at the bar, at the end of the night. You don't want to have to find an Uber or walk the streets.
That's right. So saveoursites.com. Get your ticket if you haven't already.
March 13th through 15th. Into less than 2 months, actually, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, very much
close. Coming quickly. So, Angel, we appreciate the conversation. Hopefully you find more value this year than last, even though last year I think was pretty good, pretty outstanding. Even better this year to come. Did you have any final words, Angel?
Any final words? Well, why not? Maybe I'll say, bring your Omni key card to the Clinically booth, and you can take an extra pen or sticky book.
Nice.
Clinically's famous for its sticky books. Like everyone loves our sticky books.
Oh yes, I have those. I have 2 right now.
Sticky books if you wave your Omni key card in my face.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
Well done, Angel.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Very creative.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, I think, look, this conference is called Save Our Sites, right? I think that, we've shown a commitment to be site centric, and we've tried to continue to do so. And even though, like I mentioned, right, like we are looking at some other partnerships that might not necessarily be with sites, but the benefit, I promise you, is for sites, right? And so at the end of the day, I think that, saying that you care about sites and actually doing something about it are two very different things. And so, I just invite anyone out there that listens to this and wants to know more about us, that attends the conference, please stop by, right? I'd much rather talk to you in person and get a sense of what you're like than, the coldness of Zoom. Body language and facial expressions do a lot too. And if you're going to the conference, safe travels. I'll definitely be there. Enjoy OKC. I've never been there, so I'm going there a day early to kind of check it out. So I'll take some recommendations or side tower and anywhere.
Hit me up. Hit me up if you're here. We'll take you out.
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
rocking on oysters. I just learned what that was, so Google it, guys.
Oh boy.
Thank you, everyone. SaveOurSites.com. Thank you, Angel. Really appreciate it. Clinical.ly. Catch y'all later. Chris, hit that exit button.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.